More and more often, we're building our communities and living and playing in forested areas. I get it. It's nice to feel connected to nature. And if you make that choice, eventually we're going to be having a conversation about wildfire. Now, what we can do as a community before that wildfire hits is really important, and there's a lot of things to consider. Hi, my name is Garnet Mierau, and I'm part of the Logan Lake Community Forest Management Team. This message is designed specifically for citizens of Logan Lake. Now, if you happen to be watching this video from another BC community forest, or just a community with a threat from wildfire, maybe there's some nuggets in here for you as well. So without further ado, let's get started. So a quick introduction to Forsite is probably a good idea. That's who I work for. John Drew started the company in 1987 with a couple friends and worked out of their basements. And since that time have been able to grow the company nationwide. And it's very common for us to work in teams as we work on different projects throughout the company. So we're now sitting at roughly 140 or so professionals. Those professionals, bulk of them, are part of the Association of BC Forest Professionals, and we are each bound by a code of ethics, which is grounded by a duty to the public. So let's have a little look at what Logan Lake looks like from the air, a bird's eye view, if you will. And you can see that Logan Lake is nested in and amongst a beautiful forest and surrounding landscape. Now, as forest professionals, we do manage under the Forest and Range Practices Act, FERPA, and there are 11 values that we manage for in this regulation. And I think what's important here is that we recognize and acknowledge that all of these are interconnected. It's not just one value. And, specifically, we're going to talk a bit more about the recreation values later in this video. When I think about the Forest and Range Practices Act, we have the legal context. This Venn diagram really encapsulates some of the non-legal aspects of our job and our duties. And again, this is really important when it comes to a community forest. And when I think about emergency management in British Columbia, well, really it's about the continuum of how the cycle works. So in the BC Wildfire Service and emergency management in British Columbia, they talk about the 4 pillars of emergency management, and that's prevention and mitigation, then moving on to preparedness. And that's where, Logan Lake, we spend a bulk of our time. But if there ever was an incident, and we have had incidences, it's really about the response and then the recovery. Just a quick 101 on wildfire. There's the story and the tale of 2 triangles. So the first triangle on the left is the wildfire triangle, and that takes heat, fuel, and oxygen. And then the second triangle on the right is the fire behavior triangle when we're talking about the weather and topography. Now, what's kind of interesting here is that the 2 triangles share that one side of the triangle. And when you think about how do you want to manage things and defeat the triangle, you want to take away one of those sides. And in this case, the forests or the fuels in both triangles are what we're targeting. So a little bit more on that. When I look at different ways that we categorize fires, they call them fire ranks. We really want to keep our fires that are around Logan Lake in the ranks 1, 2, and 3. Once we start getting into ranks 4, 5, and 6, it's really getting beyond where we can control things, and we really want to take sort of that initiative and keep those fires to a lower level rank. So how do we do that? Well, one of the strategies is to simply thin. So this infographic here talks about the understory and the overstory, and really it's a story of removing the fuels or the trees in the understory. So you can see there's sort of a gradient in there, and what we're trying to find is that happy medium between really removing the understory and pruning and coming up with to maybe a lesser extent changing the species in the area. So let's just reflect on that. I mean, we have a professional code of ethics that we work under. There's 11 values under the legislation that we work for in the Forest and Range Practice Act. There's emergency management. We spend most of our time in the preparedness and the prevention side of things. We've got the 2 fire triangles that we work with. But what does it all mean when we start thinking about Logan Lake? How do we bring this home? Well, it was in 2003 that there was a pretty significant wildfire year in British Columbia. It was a big fire year that year. And it was the good fortune of this fella here, Tom Lacey, who lived in the Merritt area and actually came up to Logan Lake. He was retired from the BC Wildfire Service. And Tom kind of looked at the situation and said, gee, we just had a pretty big fire year. And concurrent with that was this little bugger here. That's the mountain pine beetle. And the mountain pine beetle kind of went through this area between 2003 to 2005. And it really attacked and killed all of the pine, lodgepole pine and the ponderosa pine in the area. So it left the forests around Logan Lake, and this is a nice aerial view from I think around 1995-ish or so, but we're really looking at all the dead red trees all around the community. And what did it look like on the ground? Well, this is a good snapshot of what a typical pine forest looked in the area. Just a tremendous amount of wildfire hazard here. If you can imagine what a fire would look like in there, it would be very hot. And we just wouldn't be able to put crews in there safely to attack it, fight it, and really to try and protect the community. So it was through some logging in 2004, 2005 that the community was trying to progressively get ahead of this, and that was through some of the work that Tom Lacey had identified. And it was through that became the catalyst for the community forest for Logan Lake. And just a quick map showing where the community forest is. You can see here Kamloops to the north, following the Coquihalla, and then the turnoff here, going across 97D over to Logan Lake. And so roughly about 16,700 hectares there in the community forest, with an annual allowable cut, an AAC of 24,000 meters cubed per year, primarily of Douglas fir, spruce, balsam, and of course the pine. Much of the pine has been salvage harvested through our program so far. Community forests, BC Community Forest Association, it's really about, the local resources having local choices, local voices. And we really do subscribe to that. And we've been fortunate as a community forest and a community to be acknowledged for that. 2019 was a bit of a banner year, both through the Southern Interior Local Government Association and the BC Community Forest Association, acknowledging Logan Lake for their efforts as a community forest. So pretty proud of all that work that the entire team has been involved with there. And the other thing that I really reflect on when I think about Logan Lake is just the leadership that's been in place throughout the years. Honestly, you've had different mayors, you've had different councillors, and throughout that they've been very firm on their putting wildfire and FireSmart principles at the forefront. And here they are just doing the shovel turn on the new fire hall, something to be proud of there too as well. Okay, and here we are meeting the Community Forest Board of Directors and the management team and the mayor and councillors. So we had a strategic planning session. And just for a point of clarity, we as managers, we work under contract. We report to the Board of Directors, and that Board of Directors, we have one shareholder, and that is the District of Logan Lake in the corporation. It's also good to get out on the land every once in a while, and here we are on an agency field trip with the Ministry of Forest, Lands, and Natural Resource Operations and Rural Development. It's a good opportunity to get out there and just kick the dirt. So now we'll just take another step back and have a look at things. We've talked about the landscape level events, the 2003 wildfires. Concurrent with that was the mountain pine beetle. And that's really where the start of the community forest happened. And we're dealing with the threat of wildfire, and just maintaining that FireSmart principles has been really important with continuous leadership. But you know what? Fire still happens, and it doesn't matter really how much we've done. It's always going to be a factor. Again, we're a community that lives and plays in the forest. So fire will happen. And this is just a quick map of some of the lightning strikes in the area. And realize, of course, that about 50% of the fires in British Columbia are still human caused. So there's another double on top of this. So just quickly, here's a quick map of some of the history around here for the treatment of the areas we've done around Logan Lake. We've done a really fantastic job from the 0 to 500 meter range around the community. really tackling it aggressively over the years, starting in 2003. And generally removing the dead pine stands, thinning and partial cutting, retaining the Douglas fir, and pruning and piling. And all that hard work has been recognized by FireSmart Canada. This is the ceremony in 2013, and it just acknowledges 10 years of continuous FireSmart activities. Pretty proud of that too. Again, we still have risk though. And so in 2014, the Community Wildfire Protection Plan was updated. And in this case, we looked at the risk, the threat around the community, and you can see the red bulge around the community, still quite significant. And this is part of a reflection of there's been no wildfire in this forest for probably about 100 years. As a management regime, we've been putting fires out. We're very good at putting fires out, but these are not natural ecosystems anymore just because of the absence of fire. Typically, they would have had light fires coming through there and cleaning them up and kind of doing that thinning from below and pruning naturally through fire. But all of that is gone when we've been putting fires out. And again, when we looked at where the values in the community in 2018, we ran this little process here where we looked at the values in the community, and you get a little red, yellow, green map, heat map, if you will, of where the values are, and they're really based around human life and critical infrastructure. So it's pretty intuitive that around Logan Lake, it's going to be a bit of a focus for us. So what do we do about that? Well, we engage with qualified registered professionals, and these folks go out on the land base and they make their assessments. They're typically forest professionals with some fire background, myself included, but others as well. And we're doing assessments and plots throughout the community to try and figure out where the biggest threats are. A key part of what we do is we involve Indigenous First Nations in our processes, getting out in the field and really looking at that, what's important to First Nations in the area, the cultural values and historical use in the area, and any kind of potential archaeological finds in the area. And we really enjoy this. It's a great opportunity for cross-cultural awareness and training, and we learn a lot every time we go out in the field with them. But it's truly about balancing the objectives. It's not just clear cutting. We're retaining lots of healthy trees behind, and we're also leaving big snags like this one. Sorry, a snag is an old dead veteran tree, which we have here. And I don't know how old this tree is, but I'm guessing it's at least 300, maybe older than that. And it's going to take a long time to recreate those. I love these trees and I want to keep them on the landscape, so we're going to retain these as much as we can. When it comes to fuel management treatments, it's a lot of hard work. Our crews and equipment around the community have been very active, again, for a number of years, and it's hard physical labor, but it's fun. It's a lot of fun. And when you get to burn those little piles, you just feel good about what you're doing. We also have the opportunity to bring in some small size equipment, and that helps because some of those pieces get really big and they're heavy, so it's not so bad on your back. So we move that around a little bit too. And here's some of the quality contractors we have. We really want to find people that know what they're doing and are efficient with what they do. So we are looking at about $5,000 a hectare to treat this. And if you thought they weren't having any fun, well, just take a look at this, the grin on this 17-year-old's face. And I love this photo because you can see in the background the house right there and someone's camper. We were literally right in your backyards in Logan Lake doing these treatments. Another initiative that we're particularly proud of is our Student FireSmart program. Each year we get together with the Logan Lake Wellness, Health and Youth Society, the District of Logan Lake and the Community Forest, and we promote job creation with our local youth. And what does that look like? Well, each day, here we are at orientation, a typical orientation. It's getting out there on the first day. Fire Chief Dan Layton plays a key role, orientating the crew to the safety requirements and some of the job specifications. And we get out there and we show them right away how to prune and what we're looking for as far as piling the debris. And here's a good example of the crew in front of their hard work, one of the piles in the back there. And it's a good opportunity for them to get in front of the local media. We've had some really good success in past years where the media's come out and run a good story on what the kids are up to. And who doesn't like a good box of donuts? So here's one of my favorite pictures. It's always fun to come out and reward the crew with a little bit of, for all their hard work, with a little bit of a treat there. Another initiative we have is with the BC Wildfire Service. We like to invite them to come out and share a little bit of what it's like to be a firefighter. And in this case, with 2019 being a very wet season, we had access to the crews. So they actually came out and brought out their power saws and did some power saw training for their crews. And we were able to use them for part of our work in the area. And it was really a win-win opportunity. And I know that our crew here really enjoyed meeting the BC Wildfire Service crew, and it really got them motivated on what it could look like to be, as one of their potential careers going to fight fires. And of course, none of this would happen without the funding partners that we have. Union of British Columbia Municipalities has been very key throughout the program. 2003 was that big fire year, and again, the Filman report in 2004 set up the whole program in the province, and Logan Lake was right on top of that and receiving the recipient of many grants. The Forest Enhancement Society of British Columbia has also supported the community forest here, as well as the Canada Jobs grant program. So each one of these programs has donated cash to us and helped us get this program off the ground. And do our treatments work? Absolutely. In 2017, this is 5 days before the Elephant Hill fire. So if you remember what that looked like in 2017, really extreme fire conditions. And there was an abandoned campfire just outside of Logan Lake. It was in an area that we had treated 2 years prior. And so we had gone through, thinned from below, spaced it out, pruned it, and removed all those piles. And in this case, the fire tried to burn along, but it really only got to about 1.5 hectares. It tried multiple trees to climb up them, and it just sort of stayed on the bark, but never really got up into the crown. So we were effective in taking the fire from, preventing it from getting up in the crowns and going that rank 4, 5, 6, and staying down on the ground, rank 1, 2, 3. So it was right on the ground there. So it was fantastic. It was a really good example of how the work that we've been doing around the community is effective in stopping the fires from getting ahead on us. And in this case, the Logan Lake the Logan Lake Fire Department was able to action the fire initially, and then the BC Wildfire Service followed up and took over the fire from there. We also have very open minds, and we would like to know, how effective are we with our treatments. So in this case, we've linked up with the University of British Columbia and their wildfire group, and we're conducting some research. And we're very fortunate to have these young ladies here, and look at those beautiful community forest hats they're all wearing. I love it. So this crew of ladies, they went around the province. They went to multiple community forests, and we were grateful to have them on the Logan Lake Community Forest. And they were out there collecting data in the Logan Lake Trails area. It's an area that we have not treated yet. And they're trying to collect some data pre-treatment, so before anything's been done. So again, let's take a step back and look at things. And it's not just about fire. Recreation is a key part of the identity of Logan Lake. And it's actually in the tagline, Discover Our Nature. So we recognize this, and we want to make sure that we're sensitive to those issues. And so here's a good example, the lake there where people are out fishing, and just as a point of interest, the landscape to the left has been treated. That's where the Frisbee golf area is, and we have gone through just above that area and treated it. So that brings me to the Logan Lake Trails area. This is a really key part. This is one of your jewels in the crown, if you will. A high density of trails. They're all year-round trails. You've got mountain bike, snowshoes, cross-country ski trails. They're all non-motorized. We've spent a fair amount of money in the area, and just at the trailhead itself, we actually did treat that area by hand, and that was around $5,000 a hectare again there. But it's time to pivot for us. We are looking at a much larger area here, and it is part of the community forest. And so we are saying to ourselves, well, how can we do this differently? Because we simply can't do it at $5,000 a hectare. So there must be another way. And we're also looking at a much denser forest with a lot more, what I would say, commercial timber. So it's a larger diameter. So we are looking at changing it up and going to a mechanical treatment where we'll thin from below. We are really targeting the smaller understory diameter trees and following up with a surface cleanup and doing some pruning. So let's have a little more in-depth look at that. So what does it mean? Well, we've been very lucky to go out with the Highland Valley Outdoor Association. They are the ones that have the contract to go out and maintain the trail network in the Logan Lake Trails area. So the Highland Valley Outdoor Association has been very gracious. They've toured me and several of us around the circuit. And so this is in 2017, going around there. We're at the northern end, and of course, we're going to come across the odd dead pine and different things like that. So we're just cleaning it up as we go. But the thing is about the Logan Lake Trails area, there's no silver bullet. This is not a simple process. But it is about enhancing resilience for the community, and I think that's one of those key messages there. So again, the Highland Valley Outdoor Association, the District of Logan Lake, and the Logan Lake Community Forest, we are really striving to work together. We've had a number of meetings along the way, both with the making presentations to the Highland Valley Outdoor Group and going out in the field. So here we've actually gone out in the field with some of their representatives, and we're just talking about the principles of wildfire and learning about what the trail use is in this area. So we happen to be just off from a cross-country ski trail here, and we are looking at the density of the forest here, and so you can see in the background behind everybody there all the ladder fuels. So that's the lower down branches, and just how thick it is there. So that's one of those concerns that we have as a wildfire lens on it. And again, we have an attitude of always something to learn, and here we're out with local First Nations and the District of Logan Lake and some fire experts, and we're just having an open conversation about what are the principles and what are some of the objectives we're trying to achieve out here. And this is an area that we've already treated. It's up by the church there on the south side of town, and we're just looking at okay, well, here's what we did, what are people's thoughts? So it was just a good opportunity to share ideas. And again, we do acknowledge that the Highland Valley Outdoor Association has been very active in the area. I think their estimates were around $885,000 over the years of just hard cash into there, but it's more than that. It's also the countless hours of volunteer time into the network, and it's a huge amount of investment of time and energy and people's attention. So again, Discover Our Nature is a really key part of the District of Logan Lake, and our intent is to really work within that. That's something that's really important to us. So trails are a key part of Logan Lake's success today and going forward. So we've had meetings under COVID, and we're getting together to share ideas. So here's where we're at, kind of thing. And in this case, we're just socially distanced there, and it was a good opportunity for the District of Logan Lake. We've got the mayor there and the president of the community forest, Claire, and the fire chief, and of course members of the Highland Valley Outdoor Association there. So again, just sharing ideas here. Oops, the other way. Here's my colleague Adam, just out looking at an area that was harvested in 2019, 2020 through that winter, and we're looking at the Mimi Falls Trail there, and we're just talking with, again, some representatives from the Highland Valley Outdoor Association on sort of what it would look like if we harvested here, and again, just trying to find a barometer of what it would look like if we were to treat the area mechanically with logging equipment here. What works and what can we do better is sort of the two questions that we're always asking ourselves. All right, and here's another colleague of ours, Lindsay. She's on the operations side with our forest management team, and she's again sharing with the Highland Valley Outdoor Association some of the ideas of what we are trying to achieve when it comes to our plans. And we're looking at removing up roughly 40% of the volume in the Logan Lake Trails area. And that would be from the smaller diameter classes. We're really trying to do a thin from below. Again, think about that Wildfire 101. We're trying to influence the fire behavior. That's that one fire triangle, and take the fire from the crowns and drop it down to the ground. So that means thinning it out, thin from below, and pruning. So that's what we're trying to do, and really what we're trying to do there is emulate what wildfire would have done naturally. In a natural ecosystem, wildfire would have come through there sort of every 10 to 15 years and burnt out the smaller trees and pruned the trees. But now, with the absence of fire for over 100 years, we're trying to do it mechanically. Here's an example of what a typical mountain bike trail looks like in the Highland Valley Outdoor Association's sort of maintenance area. And what we're wanting to do here, when we had a field trip together, we talked about doing a 10-meter buffer. So that's either side of the trail. And we're really looking to just remove, you can see in there's a bunch of dead material in and amongst those trees. We want to remove all that dead material, pull it back, and then just leave the overstory the way it is for a 10-meter buffer. And that just sort of tries to protect the integrity of the user experience. And we're just trying to clean up fuel. Here's what a typical ski trail looks like. It's wider. And what we want to do here is a 20-meter buffer, but it's the exact same principle as the mountain bike trails, except for this time 20 meters either side of the trail. And it's ultimately about cleaning up the dead and down fuel. So it's been a real pleasure to walk this path together with the Highland Valley Outdoor Association. And here we are this past summer of 2020. And I feel like what we're all, we may not always agree, but I really feel like we're trying to go the same place, and we're looking out for the best interests of this community. And as a community forest, what we're trying to do is just really influence that wildfire behavior, and again, drop it from the crown down to the ground. And it's just really important that we're understanding where the recreational perspective is coming from. And here's your president of the Highland Valley Outdoor Association, Ray, having a good gander at the $1 million view, they call it. And I can see why. I mean, it's a beautiful perspective down the valley towards Mammoth Lake there. And, what we're going to do is take this area right out of our treatment, and we'll just leave it as it is. It's actually, from a fire perspective, that works out just fine. It's relatively open up there, and it's not creating or posing a significant threat to the community. So we're happy to leave that behind. So here's a quick summary of our approach. Of course, we've been doing lots of planning and engagement. We want to do the primary treatment, which is going to be the mechanical stuff. Then there'll be a secondary treatment where we follow up and pick up surface fuels and get things down to a reasonable level. So, if there was ever a fire, we could send crews and equipment in there to fight that fire safely. We want to monitor these values. That includes recreation values, but there's forest values, and there's a whole bunch of other values like the research that we're doing in the area. And then we're going to maintain it. So it's not just a one and done thing. I think that this is the kind of work that requires multiple entries, and we just need to be aware of that and stay on top of it. Some of the prescription details we're looking at is, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to remove that $1 million view area from the prescription, and it's going to be just fine. I think, again, we want to maintain the integrity of that for everybody in the community. There is some new roads being built. What we want to do there is minimize our footprint. It's about having a low impact on the area. So we're going to pull it all out and grass seed it and put it back to bed, basically. We're doing the trail buffers, as I've talked about, both around the mountain bike trails and the ski trails. And we're going to continue to do joint field trips. I think it's really important that we keep doing that. We're doing it before, but while we're treating, we're going to do it and make sure everyone's sort of on board with what we're trying to achieve as we're implementing. And then after, I think it's super important that, let's look at this 1 year, 2 year, 3 year, 5 years kind of out. Let's make sure it's going the right direction. And the timing, we're really looking at, between December 1st to March 31st, that's your prime ski season. So we want to try to avoid that. right now, I would say, like it's November, this is a really good time. So maybe September, but really October, November, those are the ideal months to be in there. Next steps, we want to just continue to have conversations with the Highland Valley Outdoor Association, but there's the general public at large that we're interested in meeting with as well and hearing from. First Nations input, we're still waiting on some of that to come in, and that's super important for our planning. And we will, when we receive that, then we'll incorporate that into our plans. The final prescriptions will be prepared, and we'll share those one more time for review and comment, and then we'll do the implementation. Ideally, we're implementing in the fall of 2021. Now, I just wanted to spend a moment to share a bit of a personal story. I started my career in 1988 here in Kamloops, fighting fires, doing initial attack, and that's me sliding down the rope there, doing a RAP attack. And it was a great way to start my career. And I've been fortunate to be able to work with for the government, for major tenure holders. But it was really in 2003, if you remember this fire from earlier, that's when I started consulting. Now, this is quite interesting because it was 2003 and that fire column was there, and that's Rayleigh. I didn't take this picture. I was actually behind that column with my very young family, my 2 kids and my wife, and we were stuck in traffic behind that very column, being evacuated. So I know firsthand what it feels like to be evacuated, and it was through that experience. It was quite profound. It was one of those life-changing moments. And I spent the next 6 years working in incident command teams throughout the province. Unfortunately fortunately involved with the evacuation of a number of different communities around BC. And I played multiple roles on these incident command teams, but it really gave me an appreciation for the pressure of what was required and just what it means as a community to protect yourselves. And now when I think about it going forward, I now have a granddaughter, and I think that, boy, what an experience that I don't want to have again. So, and I really hope that Logan Lake never has to evacuate, and that your families never need to evacuate from your community. So again, my name is Garnet Mierau. I'm part of the Logan Lake Community Forest Management Team. I encourage you to reach out to us if you have any questions or comments and you just want to maybe get some more information from us. Please do so. There's my email right there, my phone number. You can also go check out the Logan Lake Community Forest website or the District of Logan Lake website. They're both great resources for anyone to check. So once again, thank you for your time, and all the best to you.